Hey, it's good to be with you all again. Welcome to this new edition of Immanuel-Kids. This is a place where we're going to be sharing stories and activities and just a chance to be together when we can't be together in person these weeks. But it's good to see you. It's good to be with you. I hope school is going really well for all of you. I've been thinking about you. I've been keeping you in my prayers. I've been thinking about your parents and about your teachers as well. So I hope you are doing well. I have a story for you today. It's one of my favorite stories. I remember it from when I was a kid. It's a story that you may have heard before. It's called Stone Soup. It's a really old story that probably was first told a few hundred years ago. But it's a story about a town, and there was a really big famine. Now, a famine is when there's not enough food for people to go around. It might be because there's no rain, it might be because there were storms, but people just didn't have enough to eat. And they were really scared. And it happened suddenly, so they didn't even have enough to store away for the winter time because they weren't expecting it. They were afraid that their families would go hungry. They were afraid they didn't have enough food for their kids. So what people did, they took the small amount of food that they had and they hid it because they wanted to make sure that no one would come in and try to steal it from them. Well, one day, a man came into the village. He was from far away, and he asked different people in the town about where he could find a place to eat and maybe a place to spend the night. And every single person in the town told him the same thing. They said, "There is nothing here for you. There's not a bite to eat in the whole county. You better move on and you better go to the next town." Well, this man said, "Oh, don't worry. I have everything I need. In fact, I'd like to make some soup to share with you. It's called stone soup." So he took a big black cooking pot out of his knapsack. He filled it with water, and then he very carefully unwrapped a big gray stone that he was carrying with him. And he put it in the pot, and then he set it over the fire to cook. He kept looking at the pot and smelling it and saying, "That smells really good." And all the people from the village began to gather around. And he said, "This really seems like it's going to be a good pot of soup. But you know what would make it even better? Stone soup is especially delicious if you put cabbage in it." Well, one of the villagers said, "I think I have a cabbage at my house," and ran away, came back with a big head of cabbage. They cut it up and put it in the soup. Well, the man again looked at the soup and began to smell it, and he said, "This smells so good, but you know what goes really well in this? It's too bad we don't have a little bit of meat." And so the butcher of the town said, "Well, I might have some scraps of beef." So he ran to his shop and came back with some meat, and they put that in. Well, the soup started smelling really good. And so a lot of the villagers went to their homes and they brought back carrots and potatoes and peas and whatever they had so that they could add it to the soup. Well, a few hours later, the soup was ready. And it smelled wonderful. And to these hungry villagers who really didn't feel like they had enough to eat, this seemed like a feast for them. And they couldn't wait to dig in. And every single one of them said it was one of the most delicious meals they ever had. Well, the villagers offered to buy the stone from the man who had come into the village. They said, "We need that stone because if we have that stone, we'll have enough to eat forever. That stone is magic." But the man said, "No, I won't sell you the stone." But that night, everybody had enough to eat, and the man found a place to stay. And from that day on, those villagers learned that, wow, if we just share our things, if we share our meat and our vegetables, and we come together and help each other, we'll never go hungry again. It's one of my favorite stories because it talks about the power of being generous, the power of caring for one another, the power of sharing. You know, when you first read this story, it sounds like those villagers were, well, maybe they were pretty selfish. Maybe they were just thinking of themselves and they were kind of greedy, hiding their food because they didn't want to share it. I don't think that's the case. I think they needed to learn. I think someone needed to come and teach them to be generous. Someone needed to teach them to share. Someone needed to teach them that if they shared their food with one another, they would have more than enough for everybody. I also don't think that the stone was magic. And I wonder if that man who came into the town knew what he was doing. That he knew that if he did this, he would use this to teach the people to share. You know, that is so much what we learn about from Jesus. We learn about sharing. We learn about caring for others. That's what Jesus did his whole life. He went all around the countryside teaching people. He went and he healed them. He fed them. And he taught them what it was to feed one another, to take care of one another, to look out for one another, and to share what they had. You know, that's something that we can do as well. We can share whatever we have with others. We can do it in school by making sure that everybody has everything they need. We can do it here as well. You know, we have been talking about our backpack program for a few years now. And this is a way that even some of your friends in school can have food when food is a little scarce right now. So there are ways to share food here at church. You can ask your parents to help you with that. We also have a little pantry that you may have seen that's right alongside the parking lot. And even if you bring a few cans of soup or a few cans of vegetables or maybe some cereal, you can put it in there. And that's a way that we can be like those villagers and share a little bit of what we have so everybody in our community is fed. Those are little ways of helping. But that's what God calls us to do. God calls us to share everything that we have. I don't think we need a magic stone to make stone soup. We just need to see what Jesus has done and see how Jesus has shared so much with us. We just need to look and see how much God loves us so that we can share that love with everybody around us. It's so good being with you, and I so wish we could be together in person, but that time is coming. But until then, maybe we can continue to share stories and ideas and activities and things like that. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to being with you again next week. God's blessings to all of you.